to think of it in terms of frontiers as it is advanced and behind. What matters is access. What matters is your ability to connect with other leaders wherever they are. And whether they're here in Australia or whether they're somewhere else, it's that ability to connect and build teams and to build sort of, it's that capability that matters. Now, this is why clusters are why, Melbourne is a leading fintech hub, it's a leading, for just random reasons, blockchain hub in the world. But in many senses, that isn't the most important part. And this is the reason to sort of put effort into connect, put effort into trying to figure out who else in the world you want to work with. Because never in the history of the world has it been easier to work with people elsewhere. That's just for so many reasons, not just communication. Travel is cheap, access to knowledge is easy. Also, make yourself found. Make it easy for other people trying to do that to find you. And I think this is one of the key things we're seeing in a lot of tech space is once upon a time, a lot of new technologies were lone genius. There was a single great genius would figure something out and that would be the thing. That does not describe modern technology. Modern technology is teams of people come together to do something weird and unusual, which means that you have to be able to work good in teams. I think that's a key part of what's happening in science and technology research. But you also have to be able to be found. You also have to be willing to find others to do that.
Any other thoughts from different industries?
Well, genuinely, I think Australia's position from a tech point of view, that angle, that lens is important. But it's not the tech that I'm worried about. We can access tech quite easily if we need to. It's the shift will happen with the willingness of people to adopt it and take it on. And it's that sort of curiosity, the want to play with the technology, the want to do more with it, is I think what we need to harness. So really getting our younger generations, I spoke about my two boys, all of us, there's a shift in the way we're going to think about making technology more fun and more accessible and more, really encourage the next generation to be more involved. I think that's probably where I think we're moving behind. Certainly that's where we can try and do more.
If there, Jenny?
I guess it's really to add to that is to think about the idea about interdisciplinary. So when we talk about these skill sets, when we talk about technology, you have to think about technology also in the mix of social skills, but also creativity, design, mixed science, art, technology. And I think where you get that interesting spark between all those sort of areas coming together, and a city that can support that, it becomes a really exciting place to be, and it attracts more people and people to take risks. So I think you want to look for those places that have the seeds of possibilities.
Professor, you actually, I wanted to follow up on the question. Many people say that Australia has a small market. We have 24 million people, or China has 1.5 billion. Well, does a small market actually impact on our research, our development, and others?
Well, I think the economy always plays a role because the market drive where technology is. So Australia has always been a country where you do have a pocket of excellence in each area, but you will never be like the US or like China, like provide huge, the whole set of settings. So I think in terms of industry, I mean, as I said, in Australian, the research culture is kind of a curiosity-driven, it's very applied, and does produce many cutting-edge technology things like Wi-Fi. So Australian, very few people know that's Australian technology. But it became popular when they went out, driven by venture capitalism. So I think that's Australian is always in that position. But our education system is certainly one of the best. One of the best in ways because of the culture we come from Western Western culture, the way we drive Western. And also I think Australian probably more creative in a way. Well, as a new country, you probably don't have a baggage. You're trying to do something new. That reflects to how you deal with the industry. So for me, I think what I see is that we still continue to pursue excellence, but I see the future. Now we call it a translation of research. Translation is translate the research results into tangible impact. I see the future will be in the translation into the Asian way, the place where you actually realize this potential commercial potential.
So we create
relationships.
that's right, in countries. Jason, there's something more.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think the point can be made even that one person has to move through all of those. But it also describes 5 or 10 people with different specializations coming together simultaneously to do a thing. And that's where you want to be. So once upon a time, earlier generations of technology, it mattered where you were because the things you were making were hard to move or they couldn't cross boundaries. But digital just goes anywhere in the world. Market, it doesn't matter where the market is. You can get to it. What matters is where the smart other people you want to work with are. And that is something that Australia is very
I think
good.
Jason raised a very good point. What I've seen is, for example, in Fishman Band, we do have airspace. Actually, you didn't know that Boeing, the tail of Boeing aircraft was made in Australia. So they have this kind of 24 hours design cycle. If you design here, the team in Europe, in US, is continuously kind of talking to each other. So distance is not an issue. But I think Jason's blockchain will be even pushing that to another. So I think there's going to be a new. So Australians are always in the position you have to collaborate. You cannot be staying alone. Right?
And collaboration becomes easier and easier because of technology. So I wonder, with you guys, do you think the form of current, the modern companies will continue to exist? Or people coming to work to the city, and it's 9 to 5, that sort of thing will exist in 10, 20 years' time? Or
it's a great question. I mean, there's a new stat that I was looking at recently around how many of the Fortune 100 or the ASX 100, to be fair, will be around in 10, 20 years' time. And I think numbers 60 or 70% of the current Fortune 100 won't be around. But it's not in the same capacity. And that's probably an interesting way of looking at this. It's not because those companies, the value that's been created by those organizations is not being needed. It's the way that they operate and the way that they go to market, the way that they engage with their audience. It's not going to be the way the future audiences and the market operates. If they don't adapt to the change, they won't be relevant, including universities. We're in the same boat. If we don't change with the audience need and the market forces, we won't be relevant anymore. And so the important thing for me is if we speak about the scenario where the individuals, so the millennials wanting to be the gig economy, they want to be flexible workers, work for themselves, move around, work with others, your point around go and find other knowledge workers, they're not always going to be attracted to a big organisation. They may choose to work within one or for a shorter period of time for a particular outcome. So it's a really fascinating way to think about this. Look, again, crystal ball, I'd love to know which one so I can buy some shares, but reality is it's about being nimble to the shift that's about to occur. Well, it is occurring as we speak.
all right, before we...
Yeah, I just want to say that this is, the companies up and down is really all over the illusion. You adapt to the environment, you will survive, otherwise you will not. I see some of the big companies, some of the power companies, they have a huge brand, they have a little problem about this renewable energy. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to change themselves to be a consultant company for renewables. But if you can't change it now, it will disappear. So I think it depends on how adaptive you are. Because some of the big companies just cannot move so fast.
That's right.
Smaller one can do, I think they will survive. So whoever can change, resilient, adapt to change, they will survive.
And I remember my conversation with Jamie a few days ago regarding the luxury brands like Louis Vuitton, Hermes, etc. because Jenny mentioned to me that many of the mid-tier brands will disappear, and more lower-tier or cheaper brands and creative brands will come out. I was asked, do you think this Louis Vuitton will disappear? And she said no. Could you explain why?
I guess we are in a really interesting time in terms of this transformation. It's almost like you're trying to guess what companies might survive, might not. What we do know is, I guess there will be some really large companies that will get larger, and they will continue to do, in terms of what they do, as long as they adapt and are able to take into the new technology. But what will also happen is a whole host of new, really small, agile, nimble companies will start up, but they might not have the ambition to grow. They might want to stay small. They might decide they only want to last for a few months. So this whole other way of thinking about what success looks like, the idea that you're probably going to shift between multiple jobs. You might never have just one job. You might hold half a dozen at one time. But that makes up your week. But if it's a sunny day, you can decide, I'm not working today because I can. You couldn't do that under the old system as such. So that flexibility comes this trade-off as to what are the type of things you want. But it means that there'll be incredible, a high number of people just working for themselves. And if you've got the skill sets and you've got an ability to put yourself out there, that idea of access, being able to show, these are my skills, this is what I'm good at doing, this is why you might need me, becomes a really useful tool.
Before I pass that to you, one final question from me to Jason is that I think I probably should rephrase my question. So I think the reason that modern company exists is because it holds contracts. It binds people together to work, and so people get paid. Well, in the blockchain world, you don't need a company to hold people together. You can literally organize a bunch of people, and if they can cooperate with each other and work on the term, they will get paid because it's all recorded by blockchain, cannot be changed. Do you think that has an impact on the structure, future structure of companies and capitalism even?
Yeah, okay. All right. Let's talk economics. Part of the reason that companies exist, part of the reason they're so big, is they're not just sort of gathering resources together and pulling people into place and doing that. Part of what companies do is they monitor. I mean, they have managers. Part of what they're doing is just, you've got a hierarchic structure of people watching other people to ensure that a thing happens. Someone turned up and did the thing. Most of that's administration. We have companies simply because it's difficult to trust other people that, yeah, I did the thing, or yes, that got done. This is the way in which sort of blockchain technology or sort of other ways of verifying that something happened actually disrupts the economy in some really interesting ways. It's not just providing Bitcoin magic internet money. What it also does is it might mean that we don't need as many managerial functions that are doing monitoring and auditing and just checking that something happened, right? Those are tedious, boring jobs that have power in them. And that's the type of disruption I think we're heading. So I mean, I do believe that we're heading to a world that will have a lot less large corporations in it. What will happen is we'll probably have a lot bigger platforms that will organize things. We'll have a lot more smaller, nimble teams forming to do a thing and using all sorts of administrative advanced technologies to monitor the doing of that thing. Then those teams will break up and they'll go off and do something else. And to me, that sounds like a really fun way to live. I mean, the thing we're giving up there is security, this notion of a job for life. But the price of a job for life was being continually monitored by someone, having a boss looking over you all the time, doing the same thing day in, day out, having your creativity stifled because you weren't in charge of what you were doing. So I think there's a lot of excitement to be had about this notion of us entering a new world of flexible teams coming together to do complex things, doing that thing, then going off and doing something else. And it sounds disruptive and uncertain. But I think it's much better for human flourishing. That's how we thrive, is in that sort of environment. So I mean, I think this is an exciting world we're heading into. The end of the large corporation and the end of the long-term job. It, to me, is like one of the best things that could happen for human beings.
Well, they can be scary to many people.
Well, it's scary because we're comparing it to, because we haven't seen we haven't inhabited this new world yet. We'll adapt, we'll figure out ways to provide insurance, we'll figure out ways to provide, how do I have a secure stream of income that's coming from lots of places? How do I enable people to find me to do this? How do I find people? And all of those are questions that we need to answer. But what this looks like is we need to really think hard about our own brands, our own, how we present the skills we've got to the world, how we find others with complementary skills, how we sort of automate all of the administrative contracting parts that firms and managers and bosses were doing beforehand. Right, that's what's coming. One great idea is start a business that does that, right? It sort of figures out how to do that. But the message I wanted to put here is this is coming. And I think we should embrace this as one of the most exciting things about creating a type of work, a type of economic environment that actually is built for humans. It's built, it enables us to be creative, to be social, to be continuously learning as we go on. Those are all good things.
I think as we can see today that it is really going to be problematic for people who only can see 5 meters ahead. And I applaud you guys, Elite Talks followers, that you will spend your time here today to listen to our topics that cannot be as interesting as entertaining programs, but at least you're thinking about the future. That's really good. Now, your chance to ask questions. Any sort of questions? Any questions? Joro?
Thank you, gentlemen and Jenny, for your wonderful presentation. And I actually pick up a few points tonight. And Sean, actually you're wrong. I think Elite Talk is more interesting than most of the entertainment program for me. And I have 2 questions. Please bear with me. The first question is for Shuminta and Professor Yu. The coming of by the way, my name is Joro from Australian China Business School, FYI. The first question is, with the coming of the 5G era, educational resources will be more accessible, right? And the physical location language will no longer remain a problem for students. You see that RMIT as a traditional, physical sense of university will face the challenges from the rising startups. So what would be your thoughts to, sell the bullet to make sure that RMIT remains competitive in global engagement and profitable as an institution. I don't work in education sector, but I'm just curious about it. But nobody had talked about it so far. The second question is for Jason. I'm a cryptocurrency investor. And the reason I invest in crypto is because I believe in the blockchain technology behind it, not only the tokens, right? And you didn't talk about a lot about cryptocurrency, but the technology and application tonight. I really appreciate that. But from a scholar perspective, do you think that the centralized currency like Australian dollar or US dollars, one day can become the incentive for the decentralized technologies? Thank you.
Sorry, I couldn't sort of only hear half of your question because here's the second.
I think the first question is how does RMIT remain competitive in a new era?
And 5G era, by the way.
Yeah. And the second question is, actually, I'm not sure. It's hard for us to listen because the feedback system isn't really working. Yeah. We're just guessing each other's words. Yeah. Oh, US dollars. Yeah. Will it be a motive for? Okay.
Let me go with the RMIT question. If I can't answer this, the whole front row of my team probably will shoot me, so when we talk about RMIT, not just RMIT, let's talk about the education sector. RMIT has been built upon a context of collaboration, connectivity, being part of the marketplace and educating students that not just learn through educators and books and classes, but also going out there and applying that trade in a practical circumstance. Your McDonald's example is a good one. I have a McDonald's background, I can say that. And that's important. You've got to be able to apply what you're learning in real life. So RMIT, as the 5G era and technology comes through, those principles will still apply. How you can apply your trade in the global marketplace, in real life circumstances, connecting with others. So I think we've all talked about finding those knowledge hubs where you connect. That's going to be part of what education is about in the future. It won't be coming to one place for 3 or 4 years and picking up one skill and then going back and applying that for the rest of your life. It's about learning literally every day as you go through your life to apply the right skills for the job that you've got in front of you. So guess what? RMIT will still be there. Because that's part of what we're